Hello, Alexis here, doing a follow-up. I am putting out some of my personal thoughts, as I said in my last video, about what the greater political agenda is here going on. And right now we have pretty much a worldwide lockdown. Everyone's talking about this viral issue that's going on and the virulence of this particular strain of coronavirus and all kinds of hypotheses on where it came from, how to stop it, the tactics for treating it, who is affected, most vulnerable. I even saw a thing today. They took some plasma from someone, which I was really happy to see, who has naturally overcome the virus, and they were using that to treat others. So natural immunity does exist. Just want to put that out there. Not going to tell you that that's what you personally need to do, but just want to make sure that we're not operating out of fear. Fear was some of what I talked about in my last video, and I wanted to say that I still really want to push the point that we should not be operating out of fear. Anytime you make decisions out of fear, you're not thinking rationally, and I understand that a lot of people are in a much more compromised situation than myself. I'm not dealing with the health issues, so I don't have that fear of being unable to physically overcome a virus. I'm not in the medical field, so I'm not constantly in contact with it either. And I do appreciate everyone who's out there on the front lines. I understand this is a real issue. I just want to make sure people maintain a perspective on how we can identify if and when our rights are being violated by our own government. That being said, I want to bring up the issue of the Constitution. I said that your rights are God-given. They're protected in this country by the Constitution for the United States of America. This is a topic that I feel does not get enough attention, just universally in our nation on any level. I do not think that the education system has properly promoted the validity of the Constitution, and I'll just give you two examples. I had two different phone calls talking to me about the Constitution, and one person said, well, I haven't had the Constitution shoved down my throat since high school. The other person said, I think the world is changing and people need to change with it, and this virus doesn't care about a piece of paper. Okay, well, to some of us, we understand that the Constitution is much more than a piece of paper. It is a legal document. It is a binding legal document, and it is the foundation on which our entire governmental structure rests. That being said, elected officials and other people who serve in a capacity to serve the public take an oath to this very important document. And I encourage you to read it. What I've really learned is that people have not read the Constitution. They haven't read it, or if they've read it, they've read certain excerpts and maybe they know a few things. Now, I'm not going to claim to be a constitutional scholar, but I've definitely read it cover to cover many times. I don't understand why people think it's such a negative thing. It exists to protect the people. It truly, truly does. It's an anomaly in historical government. Our Constitution is still, to this day, the best governmental structured thought process that the world has seen. That being said, people like myself who believe in the Constitution, if you really read the Constitution, then you can see what we're about. It's not about personal agendas, because in the Constitution, it's protection for individuals, it's protection for minorities, it's protection for so many things that can definitely be manipulated, especially through fear. So I would just like to share with you one of my favorite quotes here by someone who I consider to be one of the greats, Thomas Jefferson. He says, I know of no safe depositor of the ultimate powers of society but the people themselves. And if we think them not enlightened enough to exercise their control with a wholesome discretion, the remedy is not to take it from them, but to inform their discretion by education. This is true corrective of abuses of constitutional power. So I guess what I'm saying is people have responded to some of my comments about the Constitution saying that if I put personal freedoms and constitutional protections above the government mandates that they say are going to help control something like this viral outbreak, that I am endangering people. And that is not what I'm doing. I'm not encouraging anyone to disrespect the quote-unquote rules. But what I want you to know is any rules that are laid down by the government need to be relative to their constitutional power. So really, what the Constitution does is it puts the power in the hands of the people with faith. If you don't have the faith that your neighbors aren't going to abide by something that's safe and logical, then what are you going to do? You're going to control them and manipulate them into a certain behavior by utilizing the police state mentality? I don't agree with that. So I'm just here to say I honor the Constitution, and I did take an oath to it. And there are very clear directives in the document, and I really encourage everyone to read it from cover to cover more than once and really try to understand where it's coming from. Because anyone that can tell you that they believe in the Constitution is telling you that you have the power, the power, you have the ability, you actually have the responsibility. And it's just like any group scenario. You can't always trust that everything is going to go according to the plan. But the plan that's set forth in the Constitution is that everyone is responsible for themselves. If you want to prosecute someone for doing wrong or putting someone else in harm's way, that's completely acceptable, and I understand that. But to mandate control over individual activities and justify it by protection of the public good, that's very questionable. And I'd like to know, those of you who think that that's appropriate, where does that end? Think about that one and pick up a Constitution. You can get them in this handy dandy little pocketbook size, very short reading, easy to do, give you something to take up your time while you're, what are they saying, together apart. Have a good one. Stay safe.